ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय जन्माद्यस्य यतो अन्वयादितरतश्च अर्थेषु अभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. We now enter the 56th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Bhagavatam. So Shuka Brahmarshi continues. We saw the story of Pradyumna. Now Shuka Brahmarshi goes back to how Krishna married his other consorts. So here Krishna marries Satyabhama and Jambavati. So we'll see the story of how Krishna marries Jambavati and Satyabhama. So Shuka Brahmarshi says very cryptically that Satrajit gave his daughter Satyabhama to Krishna along with the famous Symantaka gem. So when he says that, Parikshit is curious, of course, so he's asking, what is this Symantaka gem and why did the father of Satyabhama give the gem Symantaka as well as his daughter to Bhagavan Sri Hari? So now Shukabra Maharishi gives the story of what happened. He says once Satrajit, he was a great devotee of sun. So there are many who worship the sun. They are called Suryopasakas. And sun being the bestower of energy, they worship the sun as a deity and thereby they get a lot of energy from the sun. Of course, to recognize that the sun's energy itself comes from the Supreme Being, and therefore the source of all energy is the Supreme Being, is the highest wisdom. But without recognizing that, there are those who worship partial deities, and among them is the sun. So there are many who worship the sun. They are called Surya Upasakas, as we said. So Satrajit is one of them. So because of his worship of the sun, he was bestowed with a gem. This is called the Symantaka gem. And this gem is very radiant. It shines practically like the sun. And so he, having gotten this radiant gem, he came to the city of Dwaraka where Krishna is. And when he enters Dwaraka, it is said that he was so dazzling, the gem is so dazzlingly brilliant that people could hardly see his face. Such was the brilliance of the gem. Therefore, looking at this, there are many innocent people in Dwarka who saw him walking through the streets and they thought the sun itself has taken a human form and come down. So they immediately go to the palace to report to their dear Bhagavan, Krishna. So Krishna is there in the palace, so they all address him always with great love. They say, O Narayana, O wielder of the discus and conch, O Damodara, O lotus-eyed Govinda, we offer our obeisance to you first. So they say nicely, Narayana Namaste Astu, Shankachakra Gadadhara, Damodara Aravindaksha Govinda Yadunandana. Now we have some news. It appears that the sun itself has come in a human form, the sun deity, and he is walking through the streets of Dwaraka, which is no surprise to us because you are the source of the energy for all devatas, and therefore no wonder that the sun has come to offer his obeisance to you. So hearing this, Krishna of course smiles because Krishna knows, being omniscient and knowing everything, he knows it is Satrajit. So he tells the innocent residents of Dwaraka, no, this is not the sun, this is Satrajit who is glowing with the gem that he got from the sun, and therefore not to worry about this or not to bother with this. And then Satrajit, meanwhile, he brings this gem home in his place in Dwaraka and he installs it in his altar. He has a temple like altar in his house, and there he installs the gem. He brings priests to chant mantras, and then he literally worships this gem. And the gem is also yielding him all kinds of fortune. It is said that the gem is so opulent that wherever the gem is, there is no calamity, there is no mental worry, there is no bodily ailment, and so on. So, because of these, he is worshipping the gem. Of course, we will see that no matter what, any material possession will bring suffering if it is not recognized as belonging to the Supreme Being, and if one takes ownership of it, which is what Satrajit does. So, Satrajit considers this to be his, and he is so attached to it. Meanwhile, the news of this spreads that this is such an opulent gem. So Krishna feels this ought to be with the king because the king is Ugrasena. As we already saw, the grand uncle of Krishna was installed as the king and he is still the king. Practically speaking, because the king is so old, Krishna and Balaram run the affairs of the land, but the king is Ugrasena. So Krishna goes to Satrajit and says, it is only proper that you give this gem to the king because this can be put to the use of the whole nation. So it is not for one person then, because if this gem has got such opulence, then it can be used to help many people. So Krishna asks him, but this Satrajit, he refuses it. He did not hand it over and he rejected the request of Krishna, and therefore he is now going to face all the negative consequences. So anytime when someone rejects the request of God Himself, they face consequences, and this is what this episode also shows. We saw even in Mathura when a washerman refused the request of Krishna to give him clothes, he faced death. So here, Satrajit will see, will face many other consequences. So the moral of this, by the way, is that everything belongs to God and we have to be always ready to surrender it back to Him rather than consider it as mine. So, because this Satrajit considered it as mine, he did not give it back to Krishna. So, then after some time, his brother Prasena, he goes hunting and he takes the gem wearing around his neck from his brother because Prasena is very dear to Satrajit as his own brother. He gives him the gem, and this Prasena is very enamored, so he wears the gem going to the forest. So, this is a bad idea because it will only attract unnecessary attention. And surely, what happens is a lion in the forest is drawn by the light, and therefore it comes and it attacks this Prasena and kills him as well as his horse. And it looks at the gem out of curiosity and grabs it. But as he walks with the gem, the lion, there is Jambavan who sees this lion and he kills the lion to take the gem. So, who is Jambavan is very interesting. Jambavan, as some may know, was associated with Ram in the great story of Ramayana. Jambavan is the spirit of a bear, and he is a very wise person and a very strong person, and he helped Ram in the battle of Ramayana over Ravana, and he is supposed to be living a long life. So after Ram left, he retired to a cave, which is the cave here in this forest, and he has been living there for a very long time, ever devoted to his beloved Ram. So this Jambavan, being very mighty and powerful, he sees this gem, he recognizes that it's a special gem, so he kills that lion and he takes that gem. Meanwhile, Satrajit, he sent the gem with his brother because of his brother's wish, and he did not see his brother come back. So instantly he started doubting Krishna. So this is the worst thing. Not only did he reject the request of Krishna to give the gem, he made the grave mistake of considering Krishna to be some ordinary mortal who would simply steal the gem from his brother. So he tells everyone that my brother wore this gem and went to the forest, but he has not come back. Just before he left, Krishna had asked me for the gem. So this means that Krishna has killed my brother and taken the gem. And this rumor was spread among people of Dwarka and it reached Krishna's ears. So Krishna did not want this wrong reputation to be spread among the citizens of Dwaraka. So he decides to find it out for himself what happened to Prasena. Therefore, he goes to the forest. As soon as he goes to the forest, tracing where Prasena went, sure enough, he finds that Prasena was killed and his horse was killed. And then he follows little distance, seeing that they have been killed by a lion. And then he sees a lion also being killed right outside a cave. So Krishna therefore recognizes that the one who has killed this lion is inside the cave, and therefore he enters the cave. He tells the people who there are a few people who came with him, and these army men, he tells them to wait outside because the cave is very dark. And so Krishna enters the cave alone and he says, wait outside, I'll come back with the gem. And then there he goes inside the cave and he finds that a small infant, a small baby, is playing with the gem like it is his toy. So Krishna looks at it and smiles, but right there next to the baby is a nurse for the baby, and that nurse shrieks immediately because they have not seen anyone in the cave. These are some special beings who are living secretly in the cave with no contact with the outside world. So when she sees a human like figure, which is Krishna, she shrieks instantly, and hearing that, Jambavan comes there. And Jambavan, after he comes there, he perceives Krishna and he mistakes him to be an ordinary mortal, even though it is his own Lord, because Jambavan is the servant of Ram, and Ram only has now appeared as Krishna. So he had to recognize it, but due to this wonderful pastime, all of this is because of the Yoga Maya. So sometimes Yoga Maya covers the vision even of a devotee in order to enable a pastime. So here Jambavan's vision was covered. He thought of Krishna as an ordinary mortal. It says, Savai Bhagavata Tena Yuyude Swaminatmanah Purusham Prakritam Matva Kupito Na Anubhavavit. So this Jambavan saw Krishna, who is truly his own master, his own Lord, but failed to perceive his greatness and decided to fight with Krishna because he thought he is an intruder in the cave. So there is a massive fight that happens. So Krishna, of course, smiles within himself. He knows who Jambavan is, his own dear devotee, but he wants to give him the satisfaction of fighting with Krishna because this is a desire that Jambavan had many times. Devotees have various ways in which they want to relate to the Lord, and Jambavan, being a valorous fighter, he was given the satisfaction of having the best possible fight, which is to fight with his own master. So Krishna and Jambavan fought. It was a tumultuous duel. They fought very fiercely. Krishna was, of course, in no desire to win easily, which would be easily possible, but he didn't do that. But he just made sure that it's a very tough fight, and it appeared as if they were going blow to blow. They were using all kinds of weapons and then their own bare arms and their fists, and it was a raging fight for many days. So, meanwhile, the people who were outside waiting, they waited for many days. They didn't see anything coming out. Krishna did not come. The gem was not found. No sound was there because the cave was very deep. So they couldn't hear anything. And after some time, they got very worried and they went back. Meanwhile, this fight continued for a long time. And then finally, Krishna decided to subtly let Jambavan know by overpowering him in the fight. And Jambavan is someone who has never been overpowered in any fight. Of course, he has never fought with the Lord. Other than that, he has never been overpowered. So he knows that if someone can overpower him, that has to be his own master, his own lord. So Jambavan instantly recognizes this, and then he stops fighting and he bows down instantly and he says, I know now that you are the most powerful Lord, the Supreme Being Vishnu, the life energy, the power of all, the strength of all beings. So he says very nicely, Jane Twam Sarvabhutanam Prana Oja Sahobalam Vishnum Purana Purusham Prabhavishnum Adhishwaram. He says, I know you are the very life of all beings, the very energy, Ojaha, of all beings, the very strength of all beings, the all pervading Lord Vishnu, the most ancient being. You are the creator of the creator itself, because Brahma is the creator and Brahma comes forth from the Supreme Lord. So he says, you are the creator of the creator, and you are the reality that underlies all of creation. It is your energy which comes forth as the cosmic intelligence Mahat Tattva and underlies all of creation. You are also in the form of time, and you control and as well as dissolve all of creation, and you are the self of all embodied beings. He beautifully says, Tvam hi vishvasrajam srashta srujyanam api yachasat kalah kalayatamesha para atma tatatmanam. So you are the creator of Brahma, you are the underlying reality of the universe, you are time, and you are the self of all beings. And not only that, he says very beautifully, you are my master, Lord Ram. So Ram, who parted the ocean by simply looking at it and then building a bridge over it, and thereby went to Lanka and killed Ravana, that great Ram is none other than you. So he refers to a very beautiful incident of Ramayana where after Sita is taken to Lanka and she is there, and Hanuman has gone there and found out her location in Lanka, and he comes back. Now Ram comes with his army to go to the tip of Bharat to cross the ocean to go to Lanka. When he reaches the ocean has to be now crossed over. So Bhagavan, it is said, Sri Ram requests the ocean first to part for him, and he engages in meditation, but the ocean does not part way after even he meditates for a few days. Then Ram gets very angry at the ocean, and it is said that Ram, being the embodiment of peace, but if he gets angry, nobody can withstand it. So Ram gets very angry, locks his bow, and asks Lakshmana for an arrow so that he will shoot one arrow to burn the ocean apart. And as he has such anger with which he looks at the ocean instantly trembles, and the ocean deity comes and falls at the feet of Ram and says, please don't do this, and please do not dry up the ocean. In order to maintain your glory forever, I suggest that you build a bridge. Instead of me parting the ocean on my own, it will be far more glorious if you build a bridge which will be there forever. And therefore Ram builds a bridge, and that bridge is called as Rama Setu. And in fact, even recently NASA found evidence of this man-made bridge that is still there, showing the historicity of all these events. In any case, that bridge was built, and Ram crossed over the bridge with his army and went to Lanka to kill Ravana and recover Sita. So that whole story is nicely summarized by Jambavan by saying that Ram, who did all those glorious pastimes, is now here in front of me as Krishna. So now, of course, Krishna is very pleased with his devotee Jambavan, who has recognized him as the all-pervading Lord, and therefore Krishna speaks to him now very sweetly with loving voice, touching him with very graceful hand, and he says, this gem that is there with this baby, this is the reason why I came here, because this gem has to be taken back. There are various citizens of Dwaraka who came along with me to the mouth of this cave, and I came inside the cave, simply because of wrong name was given on me as the one who had taken this gem, so I had to recover that gem. So of course we can see how all of these are simply pastimes arranged by the Lord for various beautiful episodes to come. So without this false name being assigned to the Lord, he would not have this most wonderful meeting with Jambavan, who has been waiting for this forever. And therefore Jambavan was blessed with the darshan of the Lord. And Jambavan now was so pleased that he can serve the Lord. So he said, of course, this gem belongs to you. So this is the difference again we can see between Satrajit and Jambavan. So Satrajit didn't want to part with it. Jambavan instantly gave it back as soon as he recognized that it's the Supreme Lord. And he not only gave the gem back, he said, please take my daughter with you, because his daughter's name is Jambavati and she's a very beautiful daughter. So he says, I offer my daughter as your spouse. So Krishna gladly accepts Jambavati as his wife. So this would be his second wife. Rukmini was the first. He accepts Jambavati as his wife and Krishna goes back with Jambavati. Meanwhile, even before Krishna reaches Dwaraka, as we saw, the people had left back to Dwaraka, the army men and so on who had come with him. They were full of grief because they waited for 12 days. They didn't see any sign of Krishna, so they went back and reported the news to Rukmini and Devaki and Vasudeva, and they were all worried for Krishna. So it is said that they were all praying to Mother Durga. So it's very beautifully said here that Mother Durga, the Divine Mother who protects everyone, so even Rukmini herself, along with Devaki and Vasudeva, they all prayed to Mother Durga. It says, Upatastum Mahamayam Durgam Krishna Upalabdhe. In order to get Krishna back, they prayed to Mahamaya Durga. And as soon as they prayed to Durga, there appeared the Lord with his new bride Jambavati, and everybody was so glad to see him back as if he has come back from dead. And they were all so happy, filled with great joy. And not only was he back, no, he got the gem as well on his neck, and he also has a new bride. So it says, Upalabhya Hrishikesham Mritam Punariva Agatam Sahapatnya Manigrivam Sarve Jatam Mahotsavah. So Hrishikesha, the Supreme Lord, the controller of all the senses, he came back as if back from dead from the perspective of the residents of Dwaraka. Mritam Punariva Agatam. And not only did he come back, he came with his wife Sahapatnya and Manigrivam with the great jewel on his neck. So then Krishna summons this Satrajit and he says, take back your gem, because that's what he had accused Krishna of having taken the gem. So he now tells him what happened, that your brother was killed by a lion and then the gem went to this great bear and I got it back, so you can now take it back. So the Satrajit was full of shame. He had his head cast down. He went back home. He was repenting for what he had done, regretting that how he had unnecessarily doubted Krishna and what a great sin it is. And so he was contemplating, how can I wipe this guilt? How can I wipe this sin? How can I atone for this? Then he recognizes that not only should I give the gem back to Krishna, which belongs to him alone, but I have to give my daughter too. So his daughter is Satyabhama. So he, with this determination, he goes back to Krishna and he says, Oh Krishna, please take this present of the gem as well as my daughter Satyabhama. So Krishna is very happy to accept Satyabhama, because Satyabhama is meant for Krishna again. She is a very beautiful, intelligent, magnanimous, and pleasant woman who is sought by many men. And so Krishna knows that she is meant to be his consort. So Krishna marries Satyabhama, but he says no to the gem. He says, we don't want this gem. It can remain with you since you got it from the sun deity. So keep it with yourself while I accept Satyabhama very gladly. And therefore, there was a beautiful wedding of Krishna with Satyabhama. It says, Tam Satyabhama Bhagavan Upayeme Yatavidi Bahubir Yachitam Sheela Rupa Udarya Gunanvitam. So she is full of all the great qualities, beauty, pleasantness, intelligence, everything. And therefore, this great Satyabhama was married with Krishna according to all the right procedures of wedding regulations. And thereby, Krishna married as his third spouse, Satyabhama, and the gem was returned back to Satrajit. Now, the gem story is not done. It will continue in the next episode, and we'll see even more what are all the various calamities it produces. So, this whole story of this Symantaka gem goes to show how a material possession can bring a lot of suffering, especially if the material possession is not something that one has worked hard for, but one gets it. This is why even today we see that many who win a lottery, they end up messing their lives because of the sudden burst of wealth. It results in depression, it results in loneliness, and many other qualities. So, wealth which is beyond a certain level always brings misery when the attachment is only towards the wealth. And therefore, this Yamantaka gem story reveals that. So, we'll see what happens to the gem further in the next episode. But meanwhile, in this episode, we see how also because of this gem, two auspicious weddings happened, one with Jambavati and the other with Satyabhama. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.